Okay, Carol, we're at the start of another great day of auditing. Today, I figure we explore the MDR cage and then talk to sales and purchasing, and later on, finally get to audit production. With all of the excitement yesterday, we're a little behind.
Hopefully today will be a little more efficient.
Before we get out there, let's take a look at the non-conforming products procedure, or MDR procedure, or whatever you call it here. Well, let's see. If there's anything defective, it's supposed to be in some kind of cage. Everything in the cage has to have some kind of form attached. So that should be pretty easy. We'll just look for anything without a form.
Right.
And the system administrator is supposed to disposition the material, which is then moved out.
Yes, Debbie is the system administrator, but the MDR cage itself is supposed to be managed by production. That would be either the receiving manager.
Rufus.
Yes, Rufus, or Willie, who is supposed to be the lead operator back there.
Well, we already know that Rufus hasn't been properly trained. I'm not sure about Willie. Who is responsible for this process? Who is supposed to be auditing and managing this system to be sure it's effective?
Well, this is an operations function, so ultimately it has to be operations, which is Tommy.
Revision history is Miriam again. This was first initiated in 2022. It looks to me like we have a complicated system with nobody really in charge of it. All in all, this is not terrible. But I do see about a dozen boxes in here without documentation, and another dozen or so that have documentation that may be waiting for disposition, but supposedly everything that has been dispositioned is gone, right?
That's right.
There's supposed to be some kind of system that tells us exactly what belongs in here and what doesn't. Am I right? So where is that? Who runs it?
I have access to it, but I don't run it. That's supposed to be administered by Tommy.
And what's this?
I don't know what this is.
Looks like we need to talk to Brian and also take a look at what's in the system. What's this? A salesperson on the phone? This might take a while. Better head back to the conference room. Here we go. MDR system status, only 2 open items. If I'm not mistaken, we should have an open item for everything that is still in that cage, and that's 24 items, so there's a breakdown in the system somewhere. I, as an auditor, have enough information right now, and it's not up to me to try to figure out where the breakdown is. It's up to you, the customer, to try to figure this out. Meanwhile, I'm still curious about the box of items for Brian. Good morning, Brian. I have a few questions for you.
Well, I will try to be helpful. I still don't completely understand what sales has to do with quality.
Well, there are a few requirements of the ISO standard that the organization needs to be able to meet. The first question is, how do you know what to sell? Do you have a catalog or something?
Well, we have a distribution business where we provide consumable items like shop towels and oil absorbent, and sometimes more technically complicated items. We typically have contracts with the customers for that kind of item. We are always trying to move up to higher margin products like hazardous materials and technically complicated repair parts. That is why we installed the bottling line. We found out that customers need sanitation products and cleaning solutions, and we are able to do a limited amount of compounding and bottling.
That's interesting. If I understand you correctly, you're not designing anything yourselves. You either offer commercially available items as a reseller or do custom compounding based on someone else's formulations.
That's right. We have some basic suggestions on our website and in a few brochures, but we don't design anything here.
Well, if you don't mind my asking, what's your competitive advantage? Why should the customers buy from you rather than directly from the manufacturer?
Well, there are a couple of things. For one, we've got a lot of contacts and can often do a better job of sourcing parts than the internal people in some of these large companies. Also, we're able to stock materials in the warehouse, which helps the customers reduce their inventory. Also, we're considered a minority-owned business, and because many government contracts have a set-aside, we qualify for that in some cases.
So if I am understanding you correctly, the customer specifications for the items you sell are predetermined. When you accept an order, it's not a question of technical capability.
That's right.
So when you accept an order, it's about delivery time and pack method and availability.
That's right.
So when you accept an order, do you have to run it by anybody? How do you commit to a delivery time in the cases where the item is not in stock?
The orders themselves are processed by Connie, who is the inside salesperson. She actually enters them into the system and gets purchasing to get a quote for the material, and then tries to get the plant schedule. The system generates an order acknowledgement.
Ah, I see. So what happens if the item is hazardous or risky in some other way?
To tell the truth, I've never had an order turned down. I think she has some rules as to how to accept an order. Tommy approves the high-level contracts, but the approval for accepting an order is done elsewhere.
All right, then there's one more thing we need to ask you about. There's a box of parts in the MDR cage that says hold for Brian. Is there a story behind that?
Yes, those parts were returned from the customer. There were two different product codes, 5302 and 5302M. There is no difference in the parts themselves, but the 5302M parts come with the mill test report. They were desperate for the parts, and we could buy the 5302, and they decided to accept them.
That kind of thing happens sometimes. Why did they send them back?
They used about half of the parts, and then a month later changed their minds and returned the leftovers.
I see. When you made the original shipment, did the customer give you anything in writing?
Yeah, they sent me an email, but that was lost recently when my laptop was hacked by ransomware.
Well, I'm going to have to track this shipment down and try to get some more information. Do you have a customer PO number or any other identifier I can use?
No, all of that was lost in the hacking. Sorry about that.
Carol, this was a relatively simple business a couple of years ago. They had some pallet racks and a few forklifts and a core group of loyal employees. Now, there are a couple of recall situations happening and potentially dangerous chemicals coming into the place without anybody really thinking it through. What I want to do now is think about risk and change control and see if we can figure out what they were thinking. I know an auditor should keep an open mind. Unfortunately, at this point in the audit, what I suspect is that they just pencil whip this stuff. These clauses of the ISO standard are there to give people a chance to think things through a little. First, let's dig out the quality manual and see what it says about risk.
Here it is.
Well, this isn't especially informative. All this does is echo the standard. Let's look at 6.3. That'd be change management. Just as I thought. This isn't any help either. All this does is refer to the standard, but it does say they discussed changes in the management review. Let's see if there's any discussion of this in the management review records, since we have to audit the management review anyway. Let's call up the management review of about 2022, since that's about when all of this was installed. I was afraid of this. It's basically a minimally documented checklist that is not helpful to us at all. There's no objective evidence on here that the management discussed this new bottling line at all, as required in their own quality manual.
I'd have to say you're right. There's nothing in here at all about bottling or hazardous materials, for that matter.
I'm kind of surprised we were able to find the documents. Let's look at a couple more. Okay, I think we've seen enough. These management review notes sort of give us evidence of conformity, but not really. In the case of a major change in the quality system, the company has no evidence at all that they plan to change or assessed any of the risk. There is a probable nonconformance here against Clause 6.3 for the company not following its own change control procedure. Whether I write it up or not remains to be seen.
What do you mean by that?
At this point, it's likely that there will be one or more major nonconformances. The additional nonconformance on change control will get lost in the shuffle. It's probably a symptom anyway. The real underlying cause of the problem is fairly obvious at this point. Let's not get hit by a forklift now.
Good idea.
Okay, Carol, can you explain how this place works? Is there a system that tracks inventory?
Well, in theory, when a shipment comes in, the system tells the forklift driver which bin to put the stock into. When the material is ordered, the pick ticket is generated, and the driver goes to the correct location and picks the item.
Well, in theory, that's a reasonable system. You should be able to maintain lot traceability and also control the inventory level. How does it work in reality?
In reality, it all depends on the discipline of the forklift drivers in putting the pallets away in the right place.
Right. How much of a problem is it if they don't have discipline?
Well, from the point of view of the picker, it's terrible. They lose shipments. They spend a lot of time trying to track down an item. FIFO is a lost cause. It makes this a much more impossible place to work.
Well, let's see how much of a problem this is. Let's talk to a picker and find out how he or she feels about it. Hello there, I'm Frank, your ISO auditor. Are you a picker?
Yes, I am a picker. My name is Monica.
We were talking about the problem of the items being stored in the wrong places. That makes it hard for you to find what you're trying to pick.
That's right. Some days I just want to scream.
Well, don't do that. Of the last 10 items you picked, how many have been wrong?
Oh, I would say at least 3. I had 3 just this morning.
Okay, Monica, that's about all of the information we need. Can you tell me what you know about the quality policy?
Yes, the quality policy is to do everything right and try to take care of the customers.
That's an MVP answer. Thanks, Monica. All right, Carol, why don't we audit this? Let's randomly select about 5 of these bins, and you can look up in your system what's supposed to be in them. Do you have a barcode system or something similar?
Yes, I can scan the bin, and also the item, and we can look it up on one of the computers inside. Here it is.
Am I right that your system is showing 2 out of the 5 of these bins have the incorrect item?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
You can see why this is a problem. Not only does it make it hard for Monica to do her job, it also makes purchasing much harder because your system can't really tell what you have on hand. It also makes it easy for some of this material to get lost in the warehouse and gradually become damaged and unsellable. So from an accounting point of view, you don't really know what the value of any of this stuff is. You, of course, can see the pity in this. Here is a prime example of a possible improvement project. If the company here could get a grip on their inventory system, there's a direct monetary savings that could result, along with making their jobs easier. This is exactly what the ISO standard wants you to do, namely look for improvement opportunities. A few thousand inventory savings would more than pay for their ISO registration. I will keep an open mind, but this looks like a lost opportunity. Let's run a little experiment now. I've just gone around and found these 3 boxes in 3 different stages of damage. I want to know if these technicians are all on the same page.
This should be interesting.
Okay, Monica, we have some boxes here. Can you tell us which of these boxes is non-conforming?
Well, all three of these boxes are non-conforming. The first one is open. Boxes should not be open here to avoid dust. The second one, the product is okay, but the box is bad. It needs to be packaged. The third one is not conforming. Some of the product is leaking out.
That's very good. How do you know all of this?
In my previous job, I had a lot of training. I guess it works the same here.
Thanks, Monica.
It's Willie, isn't it?
Willie is the warehouse lead. Willie, we've got a few boxes for you to inspect. Which of these boxes would you consider non-conforming?
The first one is all right. This middle one, the product is good but it needs to be repackaged. The third one, the product is leaking. We can't ship it.
Right, now what's supposed to happen?
Well, the first two can stay here. We'll rebox the second one when we get an order for it. The last one needs to be taken to the cage.
Dingus, isn't it? You look just like Rufus.
Rufus is my brother.
Dingus, can you tell us which of these 3 boxes is considered non-conforming?
Non-conforming? You mean bad?
Bad enough that you couldn't ship them to the customer.
Well, that one on the end, definitely not. I'm not sure about the one in the middle.
So if you're not sure about something, what are you supposed to do?
Well, I supposed I'd check with either Willie or one of the managers.
Do you see what's happening here? There is basic agreement on the difference between good and bad. There's some nuance, but everybody basically knows what's happening. But 15 minutes ago, these boxes were in inventory, and none of the 3, including the warehouse lead, managed to take the initiative and write the box up that was definitely bad. The problem with that is that the inventory system thinks that box is good. If a customer orders it, the shipment is going to be short because the last box will have to be held up. The real underlying problem is lack of ownership. These employees are walking right by the stuff every day. There's no expectation or accountability for them to do otherwise. Among the other problems this causes, the company has only a rough idea of the items that are in inventory that can be sold. The real issues are expectations and accountability. Well, it looks like we're in production now. What are we looking at?
This is the bottling line. Of course, we were in the chemical weigh and mixing areas yesterday.
That's right.
Not everything needs to be reacted. Sometimes the product is just run through the equipment and bottled. The mixing and reacting take place in the mixing room. Then the material is transferred here for bottling.
So you've got different processes and presumably different raw materials, and some gets reacted and some goes straight into the package. Who keeps all of this straight?
That all takes place in the control room.
And is there any kind of testing? How do you know it's right?
That also happens in the control room.
I remember you guys from yesterday. Wingus and Dingus, right?
That's right. What can we do for you?
So you guys are doing some kind of testing in here?
That's right. We sample the product once an hour, do a visual inspection, and then check the pH. For this stuff, we put a little of this chemical in it, and if it's good, it changes color.
Cool. It's some kind of indicator solution. What happens if it's not good?
If it's not good, we're supposed to call Miriam to tell us what to do with it.
How often does that happen? In the last month, how many times have you had to call Miriam?
It happened 4 times last month.
So there must be some kind of logbook or some way to keep track of all of this. So tell me, when you do a test and it's bad, does anyone ever tell you to release the product?
They always tell us to release the product. If there's an actual problem, they go out and hold the production after they packaged it.
That seems a bit odd. Doesn't it make it harder to find it if there is a real problem?
We've only had to empty out the bottles a couple of times.
Wait a minute, you mean the product doesn't test good, but you usually just release it?
Once in a while, they have us retest it.
I see. Well, we can sort all that out later. What can you tell me about the quality policy?
They gave us a little card last week. I don't know much about it other than that.
Here it is. It says that 4 times in the last month there have been test failures, and in 3 of the cases, Miriam has released a product without retesting or validating the test somehow. Who else has access to these records?
The production records are stored electronically on the main server. We should be able to look up to see what happened to each production lot. This is last month's production.
Is there any record of customer concession attached to this? Or the results of some retest?
Not that I can tell from this. Miriam may have it stored elsewhere.
Well, then here's what we've got. There was evidence of a product released by Miriam in the control room log. There's no objective evidence of a customer concession or rework or retest. Miriam may have that stored elsewhere, but that's not in conformity with your record control procedure. Or Miriam may have released this stuff without concession. Either way, Miriam isn't here to provide the objective evidence.
That's right.
Well, I, as the auditor, have to stick with the facts. There was no evidence of conformity of the products in this case, and standard says that the product can't be released without it meeting requirements, so I'll just cut to the chase. Product released without evidence that it met the spec, and called it that.
The first part of this is the recognition that something is non-conforming. This usually happens in a couple of places. When Rufus receives a shipment and it fails inspection, that's one point. When anybody in the warehouse notices damage or some other discrepancy, that's another point. The third point is in the control room for the bottling line. At the moment, we don't have a lot of experience on how to handle defective bottling material, so we have to handle that a little differently.
Right. At some point, someone has to make a decision about what to do with the item. Well, who is doing that at the moment?
That's me at the moment.
So in an ideal world, you do this as soon as it is discovered, and then someone from the warehouse carries out the disposition, whether it is to scrap the item or return it to inventory or make some kind of adjustment to it in the case of the bottling line product?
Well, in an ideal world, there isn't anything to put in there. All of the systems work and it all goes fine.
We try to keep at least 1 foot in reality on all of this. At the moment, it looks like the breakdown is getting things out of the cage.
The way it's supposed to work is that anybody that works back there has the recognition that something's been dispositioned and takes care of it. That could be one of the technicians, or Willie or Tommy.
Right. And so how does it actually work?
The way it actually works is every quarter, when we get ready to close the books, Miriam goes out into the plant, realizes that there's a mountain of items in the MDR system to be put back into inventory, and she nags everybody back there to do it all at once. One of the reasons we wanted to bring Carol in was to give her some of that responsibility.
Yes, that's right. I'm still trying to get an understanding of what's going on back there. In other words, they brought me in to do the nagging that Miriam is sick of doing. The real problem is that Willie is useless, and Tommy refuses to discipline him or do anything about it. Willie is supposed to be driving all of this, but he's taking no initiative at all.
I've got all the systems I need right now. I've got Tommy convinced that he can't live without me, and that's right because to do otherwise would cause him to have to work harder. So I am going to do the absolute bare minimum to survive. I'll prepare the shipments and get stuff out of here, but the rest of this stuff isn't my problem.
You know, Debbie, I've done this a lot, and sometimes I find out that there is one person that a lot of the authority and information and systems run through. And in this company, it's you.
Thanks, I guess. Is that good?
Well, it's informative anyway. The first question I have is about your RMA system. How does that work exactly?
The way it's supposed to work is that when the customers need to return something, the salespeople are supposed to do a little investigation, and if a return is justified, they get an RMA number. When the shipment arrives, our receiving department is only supposed to receive a return if it is authorized.
That makes sense. That way, a customer won't clean out all of the expired stuff from their warehouse and send it back to you, or cover up their own order entry mistakes.
That's right. At one point, we had 4 salespeople, and it's their job to make the customers happy, and they tended to be lenient. We had to control the returns to put limits on it.
Who was making that decision? Whose job was it to set limits?
At the time, there was a sales manager whose job it was to control it.
In most of the companies I visit, the sales manager is paid based on profits instead of getting a sales commission. His or her incentive is for the company to make money.
That's right.
As it applies to this company, who is that person now?
At the moment, I am taking the role of administrator.
Well, we found boxes of material returned from the customers in this place that haven't been put to the RMA system. How do you explain that?
Well, we're committed to making customers happy. So when we get a complaint, we want to respond to it immediately. So we tend to be agreeable when it comes to customer returns. Also, because we are short-handed, we don't have time to do a lot of investigation.
We are all trying to be customer-driven. We also know that Rufus, back in receiving, hasn't been trained on this yet. So it's possible that he would hesitate to follow the procedure, even if he knew it, if he didn't think his decision to reject the shipment would be backed up by management.
I suppose that's right.
Does everybody see what's happening here? There are 2 control points in the system. The sales manager, who is supposed to scrutinize returns to keep the customers from abusing the system, and the receiving technician, who is supposed to reject unauthorized returns. In both of these cases, the guardrail is gone, isn't it? Well, it's not up to me to set up your procedures. You can run this place in any way you want, but when the documented procedure says one thing and you're doing another thing, it's my job to point that out.
Miriam was supposed to have updated that procedure. I'm authorized to accept returns to keep the customers happy.
Okay, next I want to talk about your sales responsibility. I understand that you're also the salesperson for Blockhead Corporation, which is over half of your sales as a company.
Yes, that's right. Blockhead Corporation is considered a national account. Brian is the day-to-day point of contact. My job is to do the contract negotiation and set the pricing and product mix.
That must be interesting. Are you authorized to make commitments for the company? Do you have to run the contract by anyone before you sign it?
What do you mean by that?
Depending on the size and complexity of the business, some companies have a system of contract review, where the contract gets reviewed by a legal expert, along with multiple members of management, to give assurance that the company won't overpromise and underdeliver.
Oh, we don't have anything like that. I am familiar enough with our business that I can make commitments for the company by signing the contracts myself.
What if, for example, your supply contract required you to introduce a line of hazardous materials that you haven't handled in the past? Would you still be authorized to sign a contract without buy-in from production and purchasing?
Well, I am purchasing, so that's no problem, and Tommy is production, and he is indifferent. All he ever does is sign stuff without reading it.
Oh. And that hasn't caused you any problems?
Well, there was an issue a few years ago. Blockhead Corporation required us to honor a 3-day lead time on all items. Of course, that's ridiculous for us. We can't get items from our suppliers within 3 days. They tried to collect a $250,000 fine from us. Finally, they realized that it was a little unreasonable for them to expect that and backed off.
What about the blanket terms and conditions? Did you agree to that too?
Yes, that's a requirement for all of the Blockhead vendors.
What about the communication requirement that requires you to notify them within 72 hours if you have a data breach, and the part that requires you to notify them if there's a product recall incident?
How do you know that?
I looked it up in the hotel last night. It's posted on their website. Who reviewed all of that before you signed a supply contract with them?
They don't enforce 3/4 of that stuff. We just assumed it was in there because they were targeting their huge suppliers. They won't bother with us. We're too small.
Well, I just have one more question regarding that company. What do they think of you? Do they send you a supplier report card or something similar?
Yes, they send us that, but there are always a lot of mistakes on it. I spend a lot of time investigating incidents of so-called late delivery and poor quality and dispute half of what their findings are. It's really an annoying part of my job.
Are you catching a trend on this? Nothing is ever their fault. It's always this multi-billion-dollar company's mistake. Even though we sign an agreement, you can't expect us to follow it. The dog ate my homework. I, as an ISO auditor, am limited as to what I can say about any of this because it's up to the company to set up the rules for accepting a contract, but I, as an adult, would love it if there was a more disciplined contract review process. It actually seems like there are several cases where they've been put in an awkward situation. I have just a few more questions about your purchasing job. You do seem to have a lot of jobs.
Tell me about it.
So if I wanted to be one of your suppliers, what would I have to do?
Probably 80% of our purchases are from customer-specified suppliers, and they're from big commodity-type suppliers like Procter & Gamble and companies like that.
How do you know how much to buy? Do you have some kind of inventory stocking levels?
Most of the items we sell are won by bid and are won for a given time period. For example, this year we won the business for disposable shop cloths for one of the Blockhead Corporation's repair facilities. So we know how much we're going to need for the year, and we can build a purchasing forecast that way. That makes it easier on us because we can negotiate price and delivery. The raw materials on our bottling line have been like that. A company requires a production run of a certain formulation. We have the ability to go out and source chemicals knowing how much we're going to need.
What kind of program do you have for counterfeit and unapproved parts?
Counterfeit kitty litter is not much of a problem industry-wide. We do practically no electronics. We do occasionally buy internal engine components, but in a case like that, it's our policy to buy from authorized suppliers or directly from the manufacturer.
What about hazardous materials? We were out in the receiving department yesterday when Rufus received something that was hazardous but improperly labeled.
Sometimes the customers order by some kind of trade name, and since we are not used to handling that sort of thing, I have no real idea what it is.
So when it shows up at the door, how does Rufus know not to run a forklift through it or smoke near it?
Whoever receives it is supposed to inspect it. We try not to keep anything hazardous on the floor. We try to schedule the outgoing shipping right away so we don't have it around.
Wait a minute. Therefore, the low-wage employee with the least amount of education is expected to figure out a complicated chemical, and Debbie isn't? We know how that's working out. Okay, let's look at a few purchase orders now. Do you have some we can look at?
I have a few right here printed out. Is that okay?
PO 78135 is to Chem Central. They're a chemical distributor, right?
That's right. It's for PBX sanitizer solution.
And they're on your approved supplier list. This is for 6 drums. Why not 5 or 7?
I ordered an extra drum for inventory. They sometimes need an emergency order.
How often does that happen?
Well, our inventory system says we have 3 available in-house right now. But I went out to try to find it this morning, I couldn't. I decided to order extra to fill the order and have some on hand.
Ah, so your order quantity depends on the accuracy of your inventory system. And do you track inventory turns so that you know how much excess inventory you have?
No, we don't track that. We're more focused on making sure the customer gets their order.
Okay, one more thing. What happens if there's a late shipment? Do the suppliers call you and tell you?
That doesn't usually happen. We're in a situation with the supply chain where suppliers don't do a good job of communicating late shipments.
Right. But you need your items to arrive on time for you to be able to meet your own promise dates. How do you tell your customers their shipment is going to be late?
The salesperson, which is sometimes me, is responsible for calling the customers and adjusting the promise date. We build some lead time into our original quote and order acknowledgement. I don't have time to follow all of these orders and tell the customers the status.
Of all of the things in this interview, do you see where this is the most problematic? All of the incentives here are to lie. If the company tells the truth and tells the customers there's a long lead time, they might not get the order. If the company lies and says, sure, we can get it here tomorrow, they're setting unrealistic customer expectations. If the company has a lot of aggressive competitors, including the manufacturer, this is even more problematic. In a general way, the quality policy, which is meeting customer requirements, should prevail in this case. But it doesn't always prevail. We need to investigate whether the company tracks on-time delivery and how it represents its delivery ability to the marketplace.